Ai Weiwei was born in Beijing on the 28th of August 1857. Weiwei's father, Ai Qi, was a famous poet, very opinionated and romantic. He devoted himself to the Communist Party. Despite this, he and his family were exiled to far western China for 19 years of re-education through labor. During 1957, all intellectuals and artists were hit, and Weiwei's father was always public enemy number one. Weiwei's brother, Ai Dan, said that his father was splattered with black ink and beaten with a gun at one point. Ai Weiwei is not mainly involved in the production of his projects, mostly the decision-making. He prefers to have other people implement his ideas. Li Jianyang, one of Ai Weiwei's sculptors, states, "I'm just his hands." He compares himself to an assassin. Ai Weiwei tells him, "Here's some money, and to go kill this person." He understands that there isn't any reason to question why. He describes himself as doing what he's told and never questions the artistic vision of Ai Weiwei. Ethan Cohen, Weiwei's first patron, states, "Weiwei wants to slap you in the face. He wants to shock you." He refers back to Weiwei's dropping a Han Dynasty urn in 1995. Cohen states, "He's saying that I love the culture, but I want to break from that line. I want something new." His artistic career took off around 2003 and 2004 when he was invited to work on the Bird's Nest, aka Beijing National Stadium. And after that, he was widely recognized as a must for a lot of Chinese galleries. Ai Weiwei, when he first flipped off the Beijing 2008 Olympics at Tiananmen Square, he stood against not his artwork, but what the government did during his Olympics. On the contrary, he thought that his artwork stood for freedom. Either way, he states, "I am not for the kind of Olympics that forces the migrants out of the city, to tell the ordinary citizens not to participate, but they just make a fake smile for the foreigners and become purely party's propaganda." Ai Weiwei was devastated during the Sichuan earthquake, and the government has still not stated how many people died. So Ai Weiwei decided to find all the names himself. He launched a citizen's investigation on his blog to learn more about the students' deaths, as well as making a documentary about it called Hualian Bar. He went to the site and took pictures and posted them on his blog. With the amount of anti-government noise that he was putting on the internet, he has sacrificed opportunities and choices to be more profitable. But that would mean betraying everything he's about. He sacrificed opportunities to be in galleries, sacrificed his name and his mianzi, his face, his public face among his entire country. But that would mean betraying everything he's about. Volunteers visited with schoolmates and families of these children for their names. Weiwei's team found the names and birthdays for 5,212 student earthquake victims. During the trial of Tan Suoren, a fellow comrade trying to research into the Sichuan student's death, Weiwei tried to travel and testify on his behalf. However, police detained him at his hotel for 12 hours, so he missed the trial, as well as taking a very bad blow to the head that even required surgery. In an interview, Weiwei states that he sees himself as a chess player. His opponent makes a move, he makes a move, and now he's waiting for his opponent to make the next move. Every year, he does more than 100 interviews with international press, as well as Chinese media. The destruction of the Neolithic vases and the painting over them is a statement to what's happening every day in China, and no one's thought about it. The destruction of buildings, the iconoclasm over the ages, it's the exact same that he's done. But reversing back in time, Weiwei first came to New York in 1983. He was in the first generation to study abroad after China's reform and opening up policy in the late 1970s. He went to school and indulged in the culture. He spoke English. He lived on the Lower East Side. He even worked in New York. Hsieh Tenqing, performance artist and Weiwei's New York roommate, describes that the reason they came to New York was for a collision. During this time, Ai Weiwei utilized his camera as a diary of sorts. He was there for 12 years, but his father was old and sick. Understandably, he wanted to be home, leaving New York in 93, and his father passing 3 years after in 96. In 2000, he made a show called Fuck Off, and the English name. It was a mostly experimental art, as well as performance art. Yang Zhiqiu implanted grass into his shoulders. During this time, he was mostly facing issues regarding the art world. This brings us to Ai Weiwei's sunflower seeds. Now, these are all handmade pottery sunflower seeds and hand-painted. They painted 100 million sunflower seeds and keep 8 million in reserve just in case people steal them. Ai Weiwei says that it's about eccentricity. It's about the discovery of every individual entity, and upon closer inspection, one can see the individuality of the parts that make the whole. On April 3rd, 2011, Ai Weiwei disappeared. Authorities held Ai Weiwei for 81 days in an undisclosed location. He was interrogated every day about press interviews and online activities. 2 guards stood by him at all times, including when he was sleeping and when he used the restroom. Officials say his detention was part of an investigation into his company's finances, and he was put on bail. The conditions thereof prohibited him from giving interviews, being active on social media, or traveling outside of Beijing. Within months, he was back on Twitter and speaking to the press. 5 months after his release, Beijing tax authorities gave Ai Weiwei a tax bill of $2.4 million US. When asking Ai Weiwei whether he regarded himself a pessimist or an optimist, he says he's actually an eternal optimist. He thinks optimism is whether you are exhilarated by life, whether you are curious, and whether you still believe that there is possibility.